Welcome, everyone. Got your host, Scott Blair and Donray Bennett here. We got our second episode of what we are now branding as the CANDU Sports Shows. So glad you're able to jump on with us here this morning. Again, we're talking about the second week. We're moving into the third week of December. Lots to talk about. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about our names. I'm going to pass this over to my co-host, Donray Bennett.
Yeah, so the CANDU, that's capital CANDU, all caps. Just a little throwback, and shout out to one of our lost soldiers, Michael Frank Hood, close friend of ours, roommates back in the KU freshman days. And for those of you who know, NCAA college football is the greatest game of all time. I'm not here to debate with anyone. And back in the 2000 or 2001 one, I created Candidate University, and I would scream "Can do to do," and you would follow up and others, and he would get extremely frustrated, and it made my day. And so, thought it'd only be right. He'd be
Especially when I
smiling and
came in
happy.
and said it, he
Yeah.
got
Oh my
so
God, that
mad when
was
I. He's like, this doesn't even have anything to do with you. But
you don't even play this game. Yeah. So that's a quick snippet as to why it's can do. Um, and with NCAA coming back next year, thank goodness.
ooh.
It's befitting.
Next episode, we'll do like a top 5 sports video games, but nothing but love for
Well,
Mike Hood.
top 4 plus NCAA because I'm not taking anything else
Fair.
as an answer.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Now
that.
we'll see.
Especially,
We'll see.
yeah. Much love, Mike Hood. We love you, man. Rest in peace,
Yes.
my brother. So let's start with our first topic, and that's college football playoffs. Our first episode, we spent a lot of time talking about the playoffs. We now have our 4 teams in. So, Donray, what you got to say about the Final Four?
Oof. I mean, the fact that there's
You pretty much called
potential.
it. You kind of called it. You
Yes,
really did.
but I was hoping to be wrong. Like if you do, I mean, what I said would happen was that Florida State would get the fourth. But it depends on what they decided to do, right? I mean, their reasoning doesn't stand up.
No,
They can't say it's the best 4 teams because Georgia's one of the best 4 teams.
exactly.
Um, and the fact that now you're prognosticating what a team is or could be based off of one player, as accurate or not as that
Nuts.
may be, is a Pandora box that no one wants to
There,
open. I mean, what if a star linebacker goes down or a star DN? Or what if you're the Hurricanes? What was that? The '01 Hurricanes or whatever, where you had Sean Taylor behind Ed Reed, and you had Clinton Portis and Willis
McGahee.
McGahee
Yeah,
and the other running back. If one went down, you had a future NFL All-Star behind. You don't know what's there. Now, did they play a couple games and blah blah blah? Still, I think that
still
was the
undefeated.
most
Yeah,
ridiculous, and that tells speaks more to how good the overall team is. I don't know that
yeah.
for them the way they beat not Appalachian State, whatever the team was, right? But it was like some shoddy team. Not no disrespect. Not a Power 5 team the week before. Was questionable. I mean, they struggled the first half, but they came back and beat a top 15 Louisville team with all their guns and what a precedent that was set. That you can go undefeated in a Power 5. I mean, I know we're going to 12 teams later, but you can go undefeated in a Power 5,
Yep.
beat a formidable team in a conference championship, which means the end of the year, right? You say some people say, "Well, it's how you finish the year." Well, they beat a formidable team in a conference championship, top 15 team. What else do you want them to do?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was 2 games before, because the game before they beat their in-state rival, Florida.
Oh, you're
2
right.
games
You're right.
before they beat North
You're right.
Alabama. I just looked it up.
No,
So
North Alabama.
it's not like I have all this
That's right.
amazing college football knowledge in my
No,
head.
excuse me. You're right. You're right.
But
North Alabama. That's what it was.
that's a really good take. That's a really good take. They're undefeated. The whole top 4, it's the top 4 teams. Well, you can't say that and not put Georgia in. And if we're going to get into this, well, you're not in there because you lost one of your best players. I don't know. That's a slippery slope. So what if Alabama loses their top player in the first quarter of the semifinal game? Are we going to zap them? I know we're not going to do that, but now they're not legitimate because they lost one of their players. Like that, yeah, that's a bunch of junk. So it's reason number 675,000 of why they should have expanded the playoffs years ago. And to think that, what, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't even have playoffs, right? And that's for the youngins out there. Y'all probably don't even know that, right? That there was a time when it was all about the bowl game. So the number one team would play like sometimes a team that was like 14 just
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
Pac-12 versus Big Ten in the Rose Bowl. So the best teams don't even play each other. And then it becomes really, what did Mike Greenberg say on ESPN this week? It turns into figure skating where it's super subjective. Like that was a thing for like 100 years. So meanwhile, all the other divisions, like you said, have been doing playoffs for decades. So
Crazy.
yeah.
Crazy.
So here we are. Let's enjoy the games. Lots of
let's go blue. Let's go blue. You know what? I genuinely, if ever there was a reason to root against Alabama, I know Michigan has their druthers and Harbaugh's not a lovable character, but
he is to me.
this is
Go number
this is
4.
not this is nonsense. This needs to happen. And I know I'm asking for a lot, but I would love it to be a drubbing, an
Yeah.
absolute
It
three
needs
touchdown runaway at the half, and then it never even gets close.
Listen,
So
this one's tough for me just because I respect Nick Saban. I love
mhm.
his quirky little habit where he drinks a cup of coffee and 2 little Debbie oatmeal cream pies every day. That's hilarious. I don't mind those myself, but I don't eat those like I used to. But listen, Jim Harbaugh is always, I've said this before, right? I mean, I grew up watching him hand off to Neil Anderson, Brad Muster, throwing it out to the flat to Tom Waddle. Like,
Jeez.
I love me some Jim
Well,
Harbaugh, number 4, right? Like, listen,
yeah,
him
yeah.
barking on the sidelines with Mike Ditka. It would be sweet, 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 sweet if he would come home this off season. But I don't know. We'll see what's going on with the Bears. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So
Yeah.
go Wolverines. I'm there with you. I'd love to see a Wolverines versus Washington final. I think that'd be a really good
Ooh.
matchup.
Ooh. Okay.
That's
All
my take.
right.
So, all right. So let's move to our next topic. And everyone, this is our second episode, so we're kind of working on some tweaks here. We're hoping to package this up in what would be roughly 25 to 30 minutes, as if we were fancying on a television show somewhere. So let's move to baseball. We've had two big moves with the Yankees about 2 weeks ago, trading for Juan Soto. Interesting because he's only got a year left on his contract, so kind of rolling the dice there to see if you can sign him. But the big one is Shohei Ohtani, and not just Shohei signing with the Dodgers, 10 years, 700 million. And he's deferring Bobby Bonilla style, 680 million of it to not get distributed till 10 years from now. So amazing. What you got on that?
Well, the number, man, they play with the numbers, and they say it was Otani's idea, but I don't want to take away from. I don't want to be that person. But I heard something like with the
Magic
taxes and
Johnson.
whatnot,
Remember,
he's
Magic
getting like
Johnson's in there.
34. That's, but then he's also it's still going to count against the cap like 30 something mil or 40 mil or whatever. But regardless, shout out to them for being creative. I love when people are creative and exploit loopholes. That's the only way that gets fixed.
Truth.
Otherwise, just those in the know will exploit the loopholes behind our backs. You have no idea what's going on, and then they continue to progress. So I'm glad he put it on full display. Like this is what really can happen. It's probably happening in smaller, doses that we've never really known about. And so the whole money thing, I like the idea that it's so astronomical and seemingly so ridiculous that now at least everyone's in the know and
Yeah.
aware of that how this works. And then two, I mean, what would you pay for a Juan Soto or a Harper on the market? 300, 400 million. Okay, well, what would you pay for a
Talk about Aaron Judge,
a
man. He
top
just
ace right now?
mm.
What did right, add Aaron Judge to Aaron Nola, and Nola is not the pitcher that Otani is, but you add them two together, and so yeah, you're looking at 650, 700. Yet he hasn't. He's only shown that he's worth it. He hasn't shown that that's out of control. If a player gets hurt, of course you're rolling the dice, but he's a mega star because he's got the international piece too. So they know what they're doing. They're going to make their money back with the Asian market now. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Like they're going to make their
True.
money back. They know what they're doing, and he knows what he's doing. because he's going to make way more money in branding
Yeah,
than
then there's
playing
that.
anyway. So good for them. I don't think they have the best lineup yet or the best team in the NL, let alone the whole major. So they still got some work to do, and that pitching staff can't collapse again in the
Hmm,
playoffs. So, but
that's
as for
been a thing.
Otani, I'm happy for him. I think he deserves it. And kudos to the Dodgers for being
Yeah.
creative. That's what I'll say. As for Soto, I'll leave that more to you. And that's your the Yanks seem to fall in your backyard. I really wanted to know what you thought about that. I mean, he's 25 years old, and
That's the thing.
you know,
That's the thing. For him to be 25, to be in the same outfield with Aaron Judge, if they can keep, they have to keep him. You got to find a way to sign him to an 8, 9, 10 year extension. If so, you got your lineup pretty much locked in when it comes to sluggers, right hand, left hand bats in the lineup, especially the short porch in Yankee Stadium. That's huge. He's 25, and not only is he an amazing, he's not only amazing, he gets on base. I feel like I've got Brad Pitt Moneyball in my head. He gets on base a lot. Do I care how he gets there? Like, he gets on base, right? He walks at a high rate. So really amazing stuff for Shohei. I'm just thinking 10 years, 700 million. We don't know if he's going to pitch next year. He's probably not.
Mhm.
So that's what you're given to essentially a hitter. And the guy in which he went 1 and 2 with in the MVP voting, Aaron Judge, just signed last year, a 9 year, $360 million contract. You don't think he's like, man, I should have waited a little bit? So, but amazing, amazing baseball. I think it would be amazing for the game. I know I'm a Yankee fan, but I'm trying to say this objectively. I think it'd be amazing for the game and the markets if they had a Dodgers Yankees World Series one day. They've had a lot of, I mean, who watched who was it? Was it Ast? I can't even tell you who was. I can't.
Arizona, and
I
Texas.
can't even tell you who was in the World Series because it's.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean,
too heartbroken to watch that.
yeah, because the Phillies were out. I
No
kind of
thank you.
lost interest. So
Yeah,
yeah, much respect. I'm a Yankee guy, but I'll give love to the
yeah.
Phillies here in the
I
Philly.
got to give shout out to the Yankees too, as much as I can't stand them. They have Soto. You also have Stanton
Yeah,
still,
yeah, he
and
needs to get healthy,
Rizzo,
but
and
yeah,
Rizzo in there. I mean, but if you like you said, the back and forth that is a crazy
Stan's got to be healthy. If he's
three, four,
healthy,
five,
man,
six.
yeah. I don't know. He's not healthy. He's a strong dude, but we'll see
We'll
what the
see.
year brings
We'll
up.
see.
So, all right, we got 2 topics left for everyone. We're going to close up with some NFL stuff, but let's talk real quick about the NBA in-season tournament. The first time ever the NBA has done this. I know you have been talking with me like this is the Tony Kornheiser, Michael Wilbon modeling right there. They're always texting each other all the time and all these different things. Like, you have been telling me for 10 plus years how the NBA needs to model European soccer. Well, here we are. We got the in-season tournament, which is pretty much a tip of the cap to what they got going on over there. I'm going to add my quick take here really quick. One, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it was successful. People tuned in. They watched. So the NBA, you won there. Cool. Um, I I think part of the reason why it was successful is because monetarily there was a lot of incentives there for players to show up, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of money for them to show up during the regular season too. But do we want to talk about that? Um, People know I love me some Michael Jordan. He was 40 years old. His last season, he played 82 games. He played a full season. So um, you got to
Here
show
we
up and play.
go.
I'm just saying, you got to show up and play. And I know a lot of the old heads say that, and I'm with y'all on that. Like, you got to show up, you got to play a little bit. So, but the in-season tournament, it worked. Lakers, you won. Does it legitimize LeBron's legacy? This is the first time it's ever happened. Any sort of legacy talk, it's an in-season tournament. Nothing changes. You just got a piece of soft hardware that says you won a couple of games in the middle of the season. That doesn't. I'm just trying to be objective here. That doesn't tell me anything other than you won a couple of games in the middle of the year. I'm
Excuse
the whole putting a banner up. The only reason I feel weird about that, Donray, is because I remember Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Um, I think there was this bit that some people can even find on social media where he talks about, we're the Lakers. We don't put up conference championship banners and divisional
me.
banners.
Yeah.
We only put up finals banners. They're putting up an in-season tournament banner. It is purple though, so at least I like the color choice. So I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, well, you're right. I think there's a lot to be gained by modeling European soccer, certain aspects. They took the one thing that I would probably say wouldn't fly well here, and then they modified it to make it completely watered down and unimportant. The thing
Yeah.
about in-season tournaments in European soccer is it's interdivisional,
Hmm.
interleague. It's not the same. It's not the
Not the
Premier League
whole.
saying, "All
Yeah.
right, stop. Let's all do a tournament that's also part of our regular season." So they kind of they were double dutching in there. They didn't really do it. They did something that everyone's saying, "Oh, this is pointless," and everyone's right because it really doesn't, except for those 13, 14, 15 guys that it really affects their income. It doesn't make sense. So when would this be important? When would it gain some relevance? Well, if you had um, as I've said before, you know this on your initial
Yeah.
blog way back when, if you had the relegation system where the worst teams in the NBA drop down to, let's say, a G League, not the G League, but another league that's a little lower, um, and teams from that lower league go up every year, whoever wins it, and now you're playing against
Yeah.
champs, and the draft picks are affected and things of that nature. Now, if you have a tournament, let's say you have two or even three of those leagues, or if you have an NBA Europe, or if you want to include teams from
I like
the
the G
various
League.
European,
I like G League. Yeah.
or
Just take the
Canada
G.
or
Yeah.
whatnot. But the idea is kind of like the Gold Cup in soccer. If you took, I mean, obviously the American team is going to be at a huge advantage, which is why you shouldn't do it. But theoretically speaking, if they had a professional league in Canada, that was for formidable and Puerto Rico and Mexico and a couple others or whatnot. And then those teams played each other in a side tournament. Now it's a completely different beast entity. You can win something against teams that you don't typically play. I'm not saying that's the way to go, but if you're going to do an in-season tournament, it can't be against teams that you're playing. That's not a tournament. That's a regular season, and you hand selected a certain amount of games to say those matter more. And it's
Yeah. I
they
don't
they just
even,
dropped the ball on it. They did.
but they didn't because they made a lot of money and people
Well,
watched. So, right, it
that's
was
true.
kind of the mixture of it. But with respect to what it proved, it doesn't prove anything. I mean, I'm going to just speak Chicago centric again, which I try to do. This is not an anti-LeBron. I'm at a point now where I want to honor and appreciate who he is and how he plays for as long as we have him. And he's amazing. He's a generational talent. He's the best player of his generation, without question. But the Bulls, they've actually played their best basketball since the in-season because they were awful in the in-season tournament. Part of it is that they just don't work well with Zach LaVine for whatever reason. He's out of the lineup now, and they seem to be playing some pretty good ball. So, and it's literally like a week and a half removed from it, and you're still in season.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, cool. You tried it. Yeah, the
Yeah,
whole
I just
court
don't know what
thing.
it tells you. I don't know
Yeah,
what
it
it
doesn't
tells
tell
you.
you
I
anything.
don't know what that banner tells you. And
Doesn't.
so, outside of trying some odd color patterns on a court,
No, doesn't tell you
it
anything.
just, yeah.
Does,
So I like that they're working, and I think Silver's a smart guy. I think he's working towards
something.
something, and maybe we'll
True.
get there. And
True.
he's doing it little by little, but we'll see. But yeah,
True.
that's my take.
That's a good point. But yeah, it doesn't mean anything. When you were playing in high school and you won that Christmas tournament, did that mean it? I mean,
Right.
it means you were the best of the four teams over there. That's it.
Right.
So
Right.
so with that, let's wrap up with our
That's
last.
a perfect analogy. Unless you know what I will say is like there is something to,
unless
although
you're unless you're in the
like if
Christmas tournament with the top four teams in the state, then it
that's
tells
what I
you.
was going to say. That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say. Or like the Maui Classic back in when I was growing up and Michigan always be there, and of course Chaminade or whatever would be there. But when you have some of these
You always
Big
had
Ten
the
ACC
you always had the
tournament
one
comp,
team.
yeah,
Yeah.
you always had that one. But when you had those types of tournaments where you've got four of the best, the Jimmy V, whatever, and when you've got four of the best playing, the
Yeah.
Blue Bloods, the Kentucky, Kansas,
That's different.
North Carolina, there's something in that, but it will never
No.
it's a brief jolt in a long season.
Yeah.
It's not going to be anything that's going to ever be touted. You're not going to be talking about it come
Yeah.
March Madness. You've got
No.
your conference tournament, and then you've got the NCAA or NIT or whatnot. So
Yeah.
there's and this is going to be the same, except I don't even think there's bragging rights within this unless you decide to just use the top four teams, you know, tournament style around Christmas or something, and then
Yeah, and
even that
that's
would be ridiculous.
yeah.
So,
All right, so let's get to our last topic, and that's a quick NFL flash.
mm,
We've got a lot of stuff going on. We have Detroit, who looked like they were really just about ready to get a 3 count on them on the mat last night, really show up and put on an amazing game against the Broncos. It seems like every other week you've got a Russell Wilson, Sean Payton yelling, or Coach Payton more at Russell Wilson, which is just a weird dynamic. Right? You've got Pittsburgh that's just struggling, and Mitch Trubisky, like really, right? But at the same
Mitchell.
time, Mitchell, true, Mitchell.
Oh God, I can't
But
stand.
I also see the way the Steelers are using him. I don't think same thing he struggled with in Chicago. He works well, kind of in movement out of the pocket, and they don't seem to do a whole lot of that with him. But listen, Steelers, I read somewhere where in the 17 seasons Mike Tomlin has been their coach, they've only won in a playoff game in 4 of those seasons.
No,
Four,
really?
4 of those seasons. I don't have it written down here, but it's like 4 of those 17 seasons that they have actually won a playoff game. Now, granted, in a couple of those, they had a decent little run, but it was only 4 seasons in which they've actually won a playoff game or more than one, right? Which is just wild to think about. So if they miss the playoffs, I wonder if they're going to do a changing of the guard. I
But there's
wonder.
also okay, but you got to throw in the other not amazing statistic that Tomlin's never had a losing season.
Right. They've never had a
And think
losing.
about some of the seasons. Think about the carousel of quarterbacks he had
And
last
some
year,
drama. And
and
drama.
when Roethlisberger went down and he went to Charlie Batch, and then
Yeah, oh, Charlie
my aunt
Batch.
basically, and some guy from the third level was quarterback. I mean, he's they
Yeah,
fired their offensive coordinator mid-year for the first time ever.
yeah,
I mean, they've done some, and for them to still be now they're what 7-7, I guess, and still have a shot. That's crazy. But what's
yeah,
going to happen is if they get in, they likely do lose in the first round, and then to your point, it's like, do we tout the fact that they were able to make it amidst all this craziness, or that yet again they're unable to get through?
yeah. And they've got substandard quarterback play. They've had it ever since Roethlisberger has left. So I don't think Pickett is their guy. But we got Buffalo, who I think they were robbed in Philly, but they've overcome. That was a great game, by the way. They've overcome. I think they're correcting some things. I think they're in a pretty good place. Really quick snapshot of what's going on in the AFC. Let's see what happens with the Jaguars. Kansas City. Matt Nagy is who we thought he was. He was in difficult play caller with the Bears, and now that he's got it in Kansas City, we see how much they're struggling. Minnesota, thank you for losing. The Bears still have an outside chance at a playoff berth. They do got to run the table. Their biggest opponent is today on the road in Cleveland in what's going to be a pretty sloppy mess, but the Bears usually play pretty well in that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Arizona, Atlanta finish the year at Green Bay. We'll see what happens. The NFC is going to be, it's wide open in both conferences, wide open. But with the 49ers, with the Eagles, and with the Cowboys, it's certainly top 3 heavy in the NFC. So what you got? What you got?
Well, piggybacking on that Matt Nagy statement, it also begs the question of all of the Eric Bieniemy hate and
Mm,
love for Coach Reed, which I love Coach Reed. I think he's top 2, 3 coaches of all time. But everyone said that Bieniemy had nothing to do with it, can't get a job, what have you, and here we are talking about Kansas City's offense, the one season he lose. So, um, not to say that Commanders are lightening up, but overall, I just want to give a shout out to Eric Bieniemy and what he probably was doing.
and
Um,
that this man is long overdue for a job. Can we talk about how Brandon Staley did not, right? He had 1 year as a defensive coordinator with the Rams, and they were okay. And now he's a head coach. We got dudes that are wide receiver coaches getting head coaching jobs, and Eric Bieniemy's over here like, what do you want from me? So
yeah, what else? So, um, what I'll say is NFC. I'll start off with my birds because I know a lot of people are trying to swoop in and cash in on 2 straight weeks of subpar
defense,
play.
though, man.
Um, they are dealing with some injury struggles,
Injuries.
as everyone is. And this Monday, Slay's out now too. Um, the game against San Fran, we did not have our starting linebackers. Nevertheless, that is not a reason for the drumming that we received. Um, I do expect them to bounce back this Monday, and I expect them to run the ball. Believe it or not, I think
We need it.
the
Yeah.
heat is going to rise up, and all you have to do is run, and they'll be
Yeah.
perfectly fine. They
We'll be
just
all right.
don't want to win that way, and you don't go from being an offensive coordinator to head coach running the ball and winning 21-14. You got to light it up, and I think that is what we were caught up in. And so I fully expect there to be a rebound week. I don't expect them to blow out Seattle though, because
No.
Seattle is a solid team,
And it's out
especially
west
playing
too,
at
right?
home.
Yeah.
Yep,
Oh,
playing at
yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll see how that goes. I do want to shout out. I do think it's important to note that when you look at the NFC as a whole, when you look at the Green Bay New York game, I
Mm.
think that's a telling of two teams that are in different spaces. New York is an atrocious team that
Tommy
is
DeVito.
on right. They're on cloud nine right now. You would think they're in the middle of this playoff race, like seriously. Um, the Packers, even though before this game, Love lined up to Rodgers' first 12 games or whatever it was, almost identically. The yardage, record, the whole nine.
Even the way they throw the
Um,
ball looks the same. Yeah.
everything. Yeah, he's throwing some of the sidearm off the back foot, and yet something tells me that there's no room for error. If they don't make the playoffs, I think someone like Love could be on the market. Like I think they're going to put it on. Why? No, I mean not that I hear people saying this or whatnot, but for them to have lost to a team that is in the realm of the Giants
Third
and
string quarterback. Yeah.
in the middle of a playoff run, I think it's going to, not sit well in the long run. So hopefully they can bounce back. Other than that, I mean, the outset is fine. I think the Cowboys put up a great game against the Birds. Kudos to them. They were better coached that game. I'll
Yeah.
say that. And AJ Brown even said it himself. So let's see how that goes. Kudos to the Cowboys. I don't think it's going to last with them, but for now, kudos to them. And that could be my haterish talking, my bias. And then other than that, you got to acknowledge the Tennessee comeback against Miami and what that
Oh,
could mean
true.
about Miami. Miami just,
Ooh,
you
yeah.
know,
They were
when they
flying.
play, and they got some injury issues too. But whenever they go up against a solid team, they're not really coming out on the right side of things. And not to, and the Titans aren't a solid team, but they had a solid night, or at least
Yeah.
a solid quarter, and they couldn't overcome that. I
We
mean,
love
that's
you,
it.
Brian Webster. We love you. Just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. B Web, shout out to you. But I mean, where are we at?
Yeah,
Where are
man.
we at? And then the final piece, Flacco. Is Flacco the answer?
No, he's going to get smashed against the
Okay.
Bears today. You'll see. You'll see.
Well, I think what the real issue is that Cleveland's defense is slowly falling apart, injuries and whatnot. And if they can't get back to that staunch level of being able to beat anyone with that Ravens and Detmer style um, approach,
Trent Dilfer style. Yeah.
or Trent Dilfer,
Yeah.
sorry,
It's
Detmer,
all
I
good.
apologize. Trent
BYU's
Dilfer style.
finest. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
That's
was my biggest Super Bowl win back in the day in terms of with the funny boys. But if that defense can't get back to top tier, then I don't care who's at quarterback. They're gonna have a long and a heartbreaking end to the season, as Cleveland is well known for.
yeah. And we definitely should give a shout out to the Raiders, right? They scored 0 points on Sunday.
Yeah,
Thursday, they scored 63, 42 at halftime. Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. And listen, Bears, amazing that they came back. Just think about all the pressure of letting that win go in Detroit 3 weeks ago and choking that away. You came back, you handled your business, and it looked like the same game. They just didn't choke in the final 5 minutes of the game, right? And I can't help but think as a fan, if they didn't let that first one go, and if they didn't choke away that huge lead they had against Detroit, they're right in the middle of the playoff hunt with all of the Justin Fields noise, all that stuff. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason, depending on how they finish out these
yeah,
4 games. But there's a team just sneaky. They're winning, they're managing stuff and even injuries. I got my eye on Jacksonville. I don't know. There's
Mm.
just something about that team.
Dougie P, baby,
That's
Dougie
it. It's
P.
your boy, right? Doug Peterson. Um, it's just an interesting team. And I think so much of what we're talking about, let's end on this, is coaching. There's a lot of really bad coaching going on, especially at the quarterback position. And then you've got some guys like Tommy DeVito with the Giants. He was an okay quarterback in Syracuse. Got to see him play when we lived up there. And now he's with Brian Dable, being coached pretty well. Mitchell Trubisky actually played pretty well in his system when he was in Buffalo, as the backup to Josh Allen. And here you got the third string, Tommy DeVito. He's out there. He's balling. He's balling. I think it's a good sign of what good coaching and also what some bad coaching can do to a quarterback. And look at Patrick Mahomes is struggling. And I hate to do this, but I saw Matt Nagy mess up Justin Fields because he wanted to coach his system versus coaching the player. So let's see how the rest of the season plays out. We'll do another one of these next week, right, Donray?
Absolutely.
We'll keep it
Absolutely.
going.
We
But
got to be, I got some feedback from a watcher, a viewer, a subscriber. Consistency with podcasts. We got to be consistent. I felt ill.
yeah,
I
you
tried
got
to
some
fight
COVID.
through. Yeah, COVID hit the family, and then for
Still out
some
there,
reason it
people.
actually hit us. And we were down for the count a little bit, but we're back like we left something. And so we'll be all right going forward. I got you. Shout out to
Love it.
Chris Blankenship for the feedback.
Love it. Peace and love, everyone. Thanks for joining
All
us.
right.
Enjoy the football
Happy
today.
holidays.
Happy holidays. Happy Festivus. Peace.